Hi, I'm Micah Kate. I'm 17 years old, and I'm just going to tell you guys about my mock drafts for the 2021 NFL Draft. That will be on April 29th. So I'm just going to start off simple, because that's how the draft will start out as well. The Jacksonville Jaguars will select Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback out of Clemson, to be the first overall pick in this year's draft. I mean, this is just going to happen. They've already given him the playbook, because Lawrence is one of the greatest quarterback prospects to come out of college, since he's in the Andrew Luck tier, he's in the John Elway tier, the Peyton Manning tier. Everybody knew he was going to be the first overall pick since he defeated Alabama in the college football playoff championship game, and as a freshman, and in 2018, everybody knew that he was going to be the first overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. So the draft has finally come. And now he gets to enjoy his status as the first overall pick. He's 6'6". He's got a really, really strong arm that he can be very, very accurate with. He's mobile too. He's got those long strides. He's by all accounts a great guy. And he can manipulate the pocket at an NFL caliber level, and he can go through those progressions better than anybody coming out of college for a while. So now, next we have the New York Jets. This is another thing that's pretty set in stone, I would say. They will take Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU. The Jets fans had a little bit of disappointment this year. They went from doing poorly to doing well, which takes them out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. And so while the Jets fans don't get Trevor Lawrence, they do get Zach Wilson, who is a fantastic prospect in his own right. First of all, I just love the Robert Saleh hire. I think he will do wonders for this Jets team. He has that little juice, that elan, that passion that Adam Gase just never had. So I think they're kind of doing the overcorrecting thing that just you can see in relationships all the time. And they're doing it here with Robert Saleh, and I think that's the great way to go. I think the further away you get from Adam Gase, the more successful of a coach you have. So now they have Robert Saleh locked in, and Zach Wilson would be a top pick in most years' draft classes, but because he happens to share a class with Lawrence, he will fall to number 2 here. I think Chris Sims even has him over Lawrence. I think it's a little dicey there, but he is a great prospect. Kind of just goes to show what he can do. He's just a playmaker. He's just so fun to watch. I'm not going to compare him to Aaron Rodgers because I hate it when people do that, but he has that playmaking ability that just really you just tune into games to watch Zach Wilson play. And what's great about Zach Wilson too is he can when the pocket breaks down, he can get out of it and make exceptional throws on the run. We've all seen the throw he made at his pro day when he was fading back and he threw it across the middle 50 yards downfield. I mean, that's what this guy can do. And I just hope. I think they can, but I'm very sure that they can. They can build around him the way that they never built around Sam Darnold. Because Sam Darnold, they just kind of ruined his career. But luckily, now they have a better system in place so that Zach Wilson does not, they don't ruin Zach Wilson the way they ruined Sam Darnold. And actually, I'm not even going to go so far as to say they ruined Sam Darnold, because I think he'll have a great career in Carolina, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So he can make all those throws, and they got plenty of picks around him. So the main thing will be for the next 2 years would be to build around Zach Wilson. But they got a great future. It's Joe Douglas. He was one of the top recruited GM candidates when he got hired by the Jets, and Robert Saleh was sought after by. I think he had every single team requested him. Every single team with a coaching vacancy requested Robert Saleh for an interview. So that's pick 2. Now this is going to get to the fun part. The San Francisco 49ers gave up 3 first-round picks to move up from number 12 to number 3 for this draft. They gave up this year's their 12th pick. They gave up their next year's first and the first after that. So they obviously have 3 candidates, 3 quarterbacks. Mostly, they're very open that they're going to draft a quarterback. So it's very clear that you're not going to give up that much capital, like pretty much your team's future, unless you think that this guy can make up for those picks that you're giving up. So they clearly have someone in mind. I don't know why they're playing the whole like going to like different pro days of different quarterbacks, because they clearly have one in mind. They wouldn't make this pick if they didn't. So they clearly have 3 that they really like. One is obviously Trevor Lawrence, you got to assume. The other one is Zach Wilson. However, the question now is who is that third person on their list? See, I think the person I have them taking is the least common out of the 3 candidates. The first candidate being Justin Fields. Justin Fields is a great quarterback. I'll talk about him a little later. However, the thing that makes me a little hesitant to say that it's Justin Fields is when they made the trade, they hadn't gone to Justin Fields' pro day yet. And I find that a little I find that a little peculiar to give up so much draft capital for someone you haven't even seen throw at their pro day. So I find I have some questions about Justin Fields. While I don't doubt his talent, the fact that they didn't wait until after Justin Fields' pro day to make the trade, especially without the combine, because normally you get to see him in Indianapolis, but since they don't have that little chance to get to know Justin Fields, I don't think it'll be him. Then of course there's the Mac Jones rumors. I like to think it's a smokescreen. I hope it's a smokescreen because he's not as talented by far as the other 2 prospects that are possibilities. He's just not as talented. He does kind of fit the Jimmy Garoppolo archetype of quarterback, not the biggest arm, but pretty accurate within a certain distance and can like manage a game well, which is what Kyle Shanahan has shown that he likes. So that does make sense in that front, the fact that he does fit the Shanahan offense. But the question is, why would they give up so much just so they can get someone who might be a slight upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo? Sure, Mac Jones is younger, he's cheaper, but it just doesn't make sense to give up that much for someone just to get someone who's a little bit younger and a little bit cheaper version of the guy that you already have. So I have them taking Trey Lance, the quarterback at North Dakota State. Recently, we've seen quarterbacks like him, those project quarterbacks who have all the talent you could want, but just need to be refined a little bit. We've seen those guys have success. The Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts. We've had those really talented, strong-armed guys really thrive in this league. And I bet when Kyle Shanahan watched that Super Bowl from the sideline, he saw Patrick Mahomes doing things that he knew his quarterback could never do. So he didn't have a chance to get a quarterback in last year's draft because of where a draft position was, but he saw an opportunity to get a very, very talented quarterback like Trey Lance, and that's why they did it. He had a great pro day, so it makes sense that you'd make the trade after Trey Lance's pro day. So he just sees how fantastic he can be. He's got all the talent in the world. Also another thing that makes me think it's not Mac Jones is the fact that they didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo, because Mac Jones is the most ready to start with year 1. Meanwhile, Trey Lance requires little development. So it really makes sense to keep Jimmy Garoppolo and let Trey Lance sit for a bit and learn from Kyle Shanahan and develop as a quarterback at the next level. So now we have the Atlanta Falcons. I think that they would trade this pick here. I don't know when they will, but it just makes sense for them to trade. Because there are 4 quarterback prospects who I think are worthy of top 4 selections. So now Justin Fields is on the board, so I think they can get great value for trading back. Maybe New England comes up. Maybe Chicago gives up everything in their future to come up. Maybe Denver comes up to make sure that nobody else comes up. But the thing is, I don't do trades and mock drafts. They're too unpredictable. So I have them. If they do stay at 4, I think they draft Kyle Pitts. Everybody talks about the tight end positional value. This guy is not a tight end. He has a tight end in name, but he's just a dynamic force. He was a dynamic force for the Florida Gators. He he's like, if he was a wide receiver, he'd be taken in the top 10 too. And the fact that he's a tight end just helps even more. They could go defense. They have plenty of needs on defense. Maybe Micah Parsons if they trade down. Patrick Surtain to complement last year's first-round pick, A.J. Terrell. The thing that I think is a little interesting is the fact that new head coaches generally draft, in the first year as a head coach, they draft the position of their own background. Like, I'll give examples. Like last year, let's just take last year, the new head coaches that had a particular side of the ball they were more familiar with were Kevin Stefanski, who was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He drafted an offensive tackle in Jedrick Wills. Then Ron Rivera, who's a former defensive coordinator, I think for the Bears, he drafted Chase Young, who's a defensive end. Mike McCarthy, the former offensive coordinator, but who was the head coach in Green Bay for a bit, drafted CeeDee Lamb, who's a wide receiver. And I think Arthur Smith, the former Titans offensive coordinator, he continues the trend, and he goes out and gets just that playmaker. I think there's no other way to describe Kyle Pitts as just a playmaker. He is just a nightmare to cover. Just an absolute, you do not want to be the guy who has to cover him. He's got that huge wingspan. He's tall, he's fast, he's got good hands, he can run good routes. He's working on his blocking, he can do anything. He's the tight end you designed in Madden. So I think that he kind of will fit that Jonnu Smith role in Arthur Smith's offense just much better. So now another fun pick. We got the San Francisco 49ers. That's a fun one. This is one of the biggest questions going into the draft in my mind. The two biggest questions coming into the draft are who the 49ers take at number 3 and who the Bengals take at number 5. The reason for this is because it looks like they're going to have their option of 2 great players. At least 2, maybe 3 if someone trades up to get Justin Fields or Trey Lance, whoever the 49ers don't take. They might have a choice of 3 great offensive players. You got Kyle Pitts, whom I just talked about. You got Jamar Chase, who was teammates with Joe Burrow and LSU when they lit up the league together. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were such a great duo, and so reuniting them would be fantastic. And then that allows you to move Tyler Boyd into the slot, and so then you have T. Higgins to be that goal line weapon, and then you got Jamar Chase, who's just makes people miss in the open field. If you put the ball in his hands, good things will happen if you put the ball in his hands. So you got those guys on the outside. You got slide Tyler Boyd to the inside, and the Bengals will have suddenly one of the greatest receiving groups. However, then the other person is Penei Sewell, the tackle out of Oregon. He would also give tremendous value because anybody who watched any Joe Burrow games last year, any Bengals games with Joe Burrow last year, saw he was running for his life consistently. And then he got injured. He will be coming back from an injury. And so you don't want him to have that same, you don't want him to be running around as much as he was last year. So you want to, so then Penei Sewell will definitely help. You have a couple options if you draft Penei Sewell, because you just signed Riley Reif to a 1-year deal. By the way, that's not a reason to not draft Penei Sewell. Signing Riley Reif to a 1-year deal because he's older and it's a 1-year deal. So then you have the options for the next year would be to either move Jonah Williams inside or keep Penei Sewell, and to put Penei Sewell at left tackle and put Riley Reif on the right tackle, or you put Penei Sewell at guard for a year, and then when Riley Reif leaves the next year, you have the bookend tackles of Jonah Williams and Penei Sewell. However, I think they do go Jamar Chase. There are a lot of great offensive linemen in this class. I think they try to trade them up maybe at the end of their second round pick. They definitely will go offensive linemen if they don't get one here. But I just think I think apparently there are rumors that Joe Burrow is banging the table for Jamar Chase. And you want to keep your quarterback happy. I think he'd be more happy if he didn't get sacked or get hit on every play or pressure on every play. But he clearly wants to reunite with Jamar Chase, and this is a very deep offensive line class. You can get great talent in the second round, it looks like. So then the Miami Dolphins, they capitalize on what I think they take whichever one the Bengals don't take. If the Bengals take Penei Sewell, I think the Dolphins take Jamar Chase, but I have the Bengals taking Jamar Chase, so the Dolphins will take Penei Sewell. So Penei Sewell will slide in right here. The question is, how much do they believe in Austin Jackson, their pick from last year? How much do they believe in him? Do they keep him at left tackle and you put Penei Sewell at right tackle, or do you maybe put you switch that around? You move Austin Jackson to the right side and you put Penei Sewell at right tackle. And Chris Greer is just a mastermind. He traded Laramie Tunsil for a bunch of first-round picks. And what's so great about this pick that I think will be really nice for Chris Greer to do would be that he would be getting a left tackle who's better, younger, and cheaper than Laramie Tunsil. Remember, Laramie Tunsil's getting like $22 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. And Penei Sewell will be paid a fraction of that. So he gets all of those first-round picks to upgrade at left tackle. I just think that'll be a little satisfying to him, just to show off a little bit. He's just showed everybody up, so now he can enjoy it a little bit and upgrade a left tackle just because of how poetic it is. So then the Detroit Lions, they could go anywhere. They have so many needs on that team. I wouldn't rule any position out. They could get a quarterback. They could go defense. They could go offensive line. They could go wide receiver. But I think that wide receiver is the most pressing need that they have. They have no talent at wide receiver pretty much. They signed a couple guys, but not great guys. They didn't go out, but they lost Kenny Golladay. They lost Marvin Jones, and Danny Amendola. So they need wide receivers, and this is a great draft for them to get them. And in this case, Devonta Smith falls right into their lap, so I have them taking Devonta Smith. He'll help out Jared Goff. They may get Justin Fields if he's right there, ready to take. But I think they do give Jared Goff a year just to see what they got. Worst case scenario, they may take advantage of those. I think they're going to get a really good pick in next year's draft, so maybe they can draft someone there. And they have a lot of picks if they need to move up and get a quarterback to get a good quarterback. So I think they can do that too because of the Matthew Stafford trade. So that Devonta Smith will be that great weapon for Jared Goff. He's that true number one receiver. And and so they signed Tyrell Williams. That's the guy they signed. And he's not gonna make up for. He's not good enough to be a number one receiver. And so Devonta Smith will fill that need. Now the Panthers. I had Justin Fields going to them, but now they signed Sam Darnold. They traded for Sam Darnold and they pick up his option. You can trade for Darnold and draft someone else. But then as soon as they picked up the fifth-year option, ensuring that Sam Darnold stays in Carolina next year as well for I think $18 million. I don't think they would have picked up the option if they had hopes of drafting a quarterback. So I have them addressing left tackle. They've got Taylor Motton on the right side, and so they can get someone on the left side too. I got them taking Rashawn Slater. He can fill in there, and so Cam Irving doesn't have to block for Sam Darnold's blind side, because they got a lot of weapons in Carolina, and they went heavy on defense in last year's draft. They found some good players, it looks like, especially Jeremy Chin. That guy's just fantastic, and very versatile as well. And so now they work on their offense. So let's give Sam Darnold what he never had in New York. Although I think that even if they don't draft an offensive tackle here, their situation is far better than the one that Darnold had to deal with in New York for so long because of just Joe Brady, who I thought would have gotten a head coaching job, and just all those weapons. Robbie Anderson, he's reuniting with. They also got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, DJ Moore. They got a lot of weapons there. By the way, Kyle Pitts not getting below 8 if they get Kyle Pitts. If Kyle Pitts is available, no way the Panthers pass on him. So I think that is definitely his floor, but Pitts isn't available here, so they get Slater, who a lot of people like more than Penei Sewell, because he's more of that great technique, really bright guy who can play all of the offensive line positions. He's trained with left tackle. He can also play right tackle. He can play the guard spots too, which actually a lot of people forecast him with, because he's not the biggest guy. but he can also even play center if you need him. He's just a really, really smart guy, and he's just got great technique. You know, corner, by the way, another possibility here. Guess I'm going to compliment Dante Jackson, but I think that Slater is the pick here. Now the Denver Broncos, they're just so gleeful in this situation because Justin Fields is right there, ready to be taken. So they take advantage of that because honestly, if you look at the Broncos roster, there are not that many holes. Sure, they could use another linebacker, and I definitely think that Micah Parsons is a definite possibility here. But they need a quarterback. You know, I don't think they really love Drew Lock that much. I think they understand that he's not the answer because they were in on Matthew Stafford. I think they were in on Deshaun Watson. You know, they've been in on these guys. So I don't think they have so much faith in Drew Lock. So they go quarterback here. I think they could trade up to get a quarterback, but in this case, they don't even have to, you know. But Justin Fields now has everything necessary to succeed in the NFL. They got a good offensive line with Garrett Bowles, who just burst out of the shell last year at left tackle. Then they got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon in the backfield. He's got everything set up there, and that would be a dangerous thing. Like, if Justin Fields falls to 9, that would not be a bad thing for his career. I think it would be better for him to go to Denver at 9 than Atlanta earlier. I think that Denver is just a beautiful spot for quarterback. Second best spot, I would say then to San Francisco just because of George Kittle and Kyle Shanahan. But Justin Fields is here. You know, the thing that scares me and a lot of NFL scouts about Justin Fields is his inability to kind of make his progressions. He'll a lot of times get locked on that first read, and he won't get off of it, which is a really scary thing when evaluating NFL players. People have made the case that he can do all those things. He just has faith in his guys, and as soon as he realizes that won't happen in the NFL, he'll just go back to making great progressions. I'm a little hesitant to believe that. I want to believe it. I want Justin Fields to succeed because he's got all the talent. He's very accurate, and he's one of the more accurate quarterbacks to come out in recent years. So that's really so I think that he's definitely got all the tools. If he can just learn how to recognize blitzes and go through his progressions expeditiously, then he's going to be. Look out for Denver. That's all I'm going to say. Especially if they get linebacker later in the class, maybe get like a Jamin Davis. That would be perfect. If they walk out of this draft with Justin Fields and Jamin Davis, that will be a tough roster to beat. So now let's be at the Cowboys. You know, Mike McCarthy's been struggling as head coach a bit. A lot of Dallas fans are already calling for his firing, which is not how you want to start your first year at a job. But they did get their franchise quarterback under control for the next 4 years, so we don't have to worry about the Dak's contract situation anymore. And because there's no tag clause, so they can't franchise tag Dak anymore, which I think is good for everybody because I think we were all kind of fed up with the whole speculation about Dak Prescott. So that's a win for the Cowboys, it's a win for Dak Prescott, and it's a win for us. So they got, however, the one thing that the Cowboys do is they love paying big money for their own guys. They love drafting their players and then signing them to large contracts. Like you look at Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Smith, and yeah, just a trend that you'll notice. Dak Prescott too. They just love re-signing their own guys. They also went out and they traded for Amari Cooper, whom they quickly quickly gave a big contract to. So since they have so much, they're giving so much money to very few players. It means that they have to it puts more pressure on them to draft because they can't spend money on free agency. If they can't spend money in free agency on like backup players anymore because they don't have the money to do it, which means they have to draft really, really well. So one of the biggest holes they have right now is at cornerback. And also, like, not only do they have a big need at cornerback since they lost Chidobe Awuzie, I know they re-signed Jordan Smith. Still, they need a cornerback, and they have Trevon Diggs, and who actually they could team up with. The pick that I have for them is Patrick Surtain. And also, not only are their cornerbacks weak, but the opposing receivers are looking strong. The Giants just signed Kenny Golladay, and they have Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. And the Washington football team just signed Curtis Samuel, whom they're teaming up with Terry McLaurin. So they need to be able to cover those receivers, especially Terry McLaurin and Kenny Golladay have some good size. So Patrick Surtain is perfect there because he's got kind of that lengthy corner he's got great technique, and he'll match up against them well. Also, it's possible the Eagles get a receiver, maybe like Jalen Waddle. There's rumors that they're trying to trade up to get Jalen Waddle. So it's possible that the Eagles get Jalen Waddle, and then so they have a bunch of great receivers in their division, and they're going to want to be able to guard them if they want any kind of chance of winning those games. So now they get to the New York Giants. So there are a lot of possibilities here as well. I think that edge rusher, definitely on the board. Apparently they really like Azeez Ojulari. Not as big a fan of Azeez Ojulari. Then there's Gregory Rousseau, who's that big, really talented person who you really hope can just put it all together. And who's got that size, athleticism. I think that he might catch Dave Gettleman's eye. Also, there's Jalen Phillips, who would be a top 10 pick, in my opinion, if he didn't have the injury concerns, because he had several concussions that actually forced him to retire at UCLA. But then he transferred to Miami, but he is a concussion away from just being done, and football is a very concussion-heavy sport. I know I got a concussion playing football when I was in middle school. So there's Jalen Phillips. They could also maybe try to get Daniel Jones some weapons, which is definitely a possibility because of Dave Gettleman has everything wrapped up in Daniel Jones. He did not diversify his portfolio. All of his good standing with the team is through Daniel Jones. So if Daniel Jones flops next year, there's a 0% chance that Dave Gettleman has a job. He put his neck out for Daniel Jones when he drafted him 6th overall out of Duke. So he has a lot tied up in his success. However, they did sign Kenny Golladay, so I don't think receiver's not a big need for them. It's possible they get him. I don't know. I think the edge or linebacker are definitely really possible here. Rashawn Slater, if he was available. I haven't taken Micah Parsons. I think that's the perfect pick because he just fits Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator. He's got that talent, and Patrick Graham is going to use him very, very well. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in football. We saw what he did to Seattle and Russell Wilson. They won that game because of Patrick Graham. And so I think that he will just enjoy it, because also Micah Parsons can play on the edge and he can play linebacker. He offers that versatility that they love in New York. You look at so many versatile players on that defense, especially. You got Logan Ryan, you got Xavier McKinney, you got Leonard Williams can play a bunch of spots on that defensive line, you really have that versatility, and Micah Parsons brings that versatility, and so he's just talented, and I trust Patrick Graham to develop that talent. So now we get to the Philadelphia Eagles. They will take one of two positions. They will either take a wide receiver, or they will take a cornerback. I think that the latter is a much bigger need. Sure, they need receivers. They definitely do. It's just comical watching Howie Roseman search for a receiver. They drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over D.K. Metcalf. They drafted, and then just last year, they drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. And look at how all of those careers have turned out. And also, these aren't just things that who would have thought that they would have busted, No, we all knew that DK Metcalf was better than JJ, and we all very much knew that Justin Jefferson was much better than Jalen Reagor. So, don't quite know what's up. And I don't trust them to make the right choice at receiver. And I don't think that they trust themselves to invest another high pick on a receiver that's going to bust. So I don't think that they draft receiver just out of pure fear of their own incompetence. So I have them taking J.C. Horn, who many people have as the best cornerback in the class. They also have to face the NFC East talented receivers, but they also have to face Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup in Dallas. and then of course the weapons in New York and Washington. So they definitely need to cover them, and they just don't really have that pure number one corner. Darius Slay is now on the wrong side of 30, and he's just not what he was supposed to be when they traded for him. So they really need that true top tier corner if they want a chance of winning any game the next year, because they got nothing. You know, they also need linebacker. They very much need linebacker. And they also, there are a lot of directions they can go. They can also maybe get an offensive lineman, you know, because there's plenty of holes there. And there are injuries there every single year. Every single year. I mean, every single year there are always injuries on the Eagles' offensive line. So again, they're another team where they can go a lot of directions here. And I think that J.C. Horn is a really great fit in Philadelphia. So the Chargers, I think that they're going to go with either an offensive lineman or a receiver. Because they got the quarterback under control. Justin Herbert is a star. He proved all of those doubters wrong. A lot of people doubted him, and he proved them all wrong. And they all admit they proved them wrong. This isn't like they all admit they were wrong. So now they have to build around him a little bit, because I trust Brandon Staley to take care of that defense. And they got plenty of weapons on defense. Also with Derwin James coming back, Joey Bosa is always going to be great. They also need a corner. Maybe they can go corner here, but those two options that they would take with corner would be J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain. Both of them are gone here. So I have been taking Jalen Waddle. You know, I think Elijah Vera Tucker, definitely a possibility, or maybe Christian Darrisaw, definitely on the board. But Jalen Waddle, I think, would work really, really well in Los Angeles. I think he'll have a field day with Justin Herbert. You know, his speed will just really team up well with Justin Herbert's arm. And definitely offensive line is a possibility, and I think they will get that with the second round pick. But Waddle, I mean, a lot of people have Devonta Smith over Jalen Waddle. However, if you looked at the games when Waddle and Devonta Smith were on the field together before Waddle was injured, Waddle looked like the better player. So I think the Chargers would love to have that. And then you have Mike Williams on one side, and then you can actually kind of switch between Keenan Allen and Jalen Waddle, you know, one being the X and one being the Z, the slot receiver. So you can kind of switch that up there. You can see which one feels better. I would recommend keeping Keenan Allen on the outside, and then you can keep Jalen Waddle in the slot. And I mean, that's just a great set of weapons for Joe Burrow to use. He also has Austin Eckler in the backfield. And then I do expect them to address offensive line somewhere here. Maybe they get a corner late too. So yeah, that's what I have. So the Vikings, they're going to draft on defense. A lot of people think they might get receiver. I don't see it. They don't need a receiver. They need help on defense. And we all know that Mike Zimmer loves those defensive players. So I have them take. So basically, the options that they have are cornerback, definitely a possibility, especially with Jeff Gladney, the situation with him, and yes, they just don't have a lot of talent at cornerback. So that's a possibility, or edge. You know, they signed Dalvin Tomlinson for up the middle, and they got Everson Griffin there, but they also they needed like another edge player to really take their defense, to really help their defense. So I have them taking an edge player. The question is, which edge player do they take? Do they take Kwity Paye? Do they take Jalen Phillips? Or do they take Gregory Rousseau? I have them taking Gregory Rousseau. I just think that he kind of just like feels like he would succeed in Minnesota. You know, and he just kind of he would work well. And like also Minnesota is running a 4-3 system, which is perfect for Rousseau. And I just think that Mike Zimmer would really, really love to work with someone like Rousseau. And I don't think that they are I don't think they have the ability to take that risk with Jalen Phillips and Kwity Paye. And Gregory Rousseau is just much more talented than Kwity Paye. So then we get to the New England Patriots. Definitely candidates to trade up. Look for them to trade up. So I've been taking a quarterback here. I've been taking Mac Jones. I know everybody's going to respond with the clip of Bill Belichick shaking his head when Mac Jones sailed to throw. But I mean, Mac Jones, I think would work well in New England. You know, they also receiver definitely on the board here. But yeah, so Bill Belichick went out and he hated seeing Tom Brady win a Super Bowl without him, and so he went out and he just stacked up and not in the offensive in the free agency class. Matt Judon, both the tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. He got some receivers, not great receivers. Don't know why he chose those receivers over other receivers, but he did. They're another team that always has trouble drafting receivers. See N'Keal Harry for an example. And that was, again, in the same class as DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown and those guys, and Deebo Samuel, and they chose N'Keal Harry. So, but they did get some other receivers. So I think the Belichick stays aggressive. He's got Cam there. I think Cam is very overrated, especially in this stage of his career. He just did not play well, especially later in the year for the Patriots. So I think Mac Jones would fit well here. He's kind of like that intellectual that Belichick would like and Josh McDaniels would like to work with. I think they trade up for Justin Fields. I think if Fields isn't the pick at 3 by the Niners, I think they trade up to 4. I think that's likely. I would even say, but again, no trades in this mock draft. So he's just great short accuracy, one of the most dead precision passers. And he just works well with those kind of things that Belichick's had success with in the past. And so he will, so he'll work well in New England. And so now we get to the Cardinals. I just don't know what to make of the Cardinals. I don't. Cliff Kingsbury is just like tough to get a handle on. Like, you want to like him. He's kind of that young, innovative type, that young offensive type. But he's just like not succeeded. I did not like the hire when he got hired in Arizona because he had Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes, and I feel like he never really had as much success as you should have when you have a number 1 overall pick and someone who got paid over $500 million for an NFL team. Kingsbury never did well. Never blew everybody away with his teams when he was at Texas Tech. And so I just don't know really why they hired him, and it doesn't look like it was a great hire. They just kind of went with young and exciting, and they thought that was his entire thing, the Sean McVay mode. But I don't quite know what to make here. Receiver, definitely a possibility with Larry Fitzgerald's future in limbo a bit. Jalen Waddle, if he were available, would be a great fit here. Really great fit. They might trade up for him. They also might trade up for Kyle Pitts, which I think Peter Schrager had at his mock draft. I think that's a great idea because they really don't have that tight end, especially with Dan Arnold leaving to go to Carolina. So they got some pressure off the edge. They got Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden. They signed J.J. Watt. They landed J.J. Watt, which is a great get. But they don't really have that guy up the middle to make make sure that they don't get too much attention on the outside. So I think they get Christian Barmore, the D lineman out of Alabama. So I think that's I think that he will just really be great on the inside of their defensive line and make plays to take the attention off of the edge guys they have, because they really just don't have that much talent up the middle. Again, cornerback, another thing. They got a lot of holes here. I think that they are overhyped a bit, especially last year. Last year they were really overhyped. And I mean, I don't know. Let's see. Murray's got some more pressure on him this year. Kingsbury has definitely got some pressure on him. I'm not quite sure why they didn't fire him, but they didn't. I don't know if that's the right move. Time will tell, because I think they will fire him next year. But yeah, especially with the NFC West being as competitive, with you got Rams who just stocked up and got Matthew Stafford. They mortgaged their future for Matthew Stafford. You got the Seahawks, who are always good, and then you got the 49ers, who are definitely going to come back. Do not think that they won't, because they will. So they got it. I don't know how they do in this NFC West anymore. I still think that trading Josh Rosen so soon was not the right answer. I know it's controversial. I think that they should have stuck with him a little bit longer than just giving him up on him after 1 year. Because imagine if they did draft Nick Bosa with the first overall pick. And just, I don't know. I just think that I'd rather have Josh Rosen and Nick Bosa than just Kyler Murray. But I digress. Christian Barmore will definitely help that defense out. I'm going to take a quick break, get some water, and I will get back to you. I'll get back with the rest of my picks. Okay, we are back, and now we get to the pick 17, which is the Raiders pick. The Raiders, they not quite sure what they're doing. What Mike Mayock and John Gruden have in their heads, because they had a decent offensive line last year, and they just took a jackhammer to it. They just absolutely demolished their offensive line. They had their center Rodney Hudson is in Seattle. They got Gabe Jackson. Gabe Jackson is in Seattle. Hudson is in Arizona. Trent Brown is back in New England. I don't quite know what they have in mind. They have Richie Incognito and Colton Miller on the left side of the line, but not anyone on the right side or at center. So I don't quite know what they are doing there. So offensive line, definitely tempting. Get that right tackle in Tevin Jenkins maybe. Maybe you get Elijah Vera Tucker to play right guard. I don't know. But I don't know. And also, I don't understand why we even try to do mock drafts with the Raiders in it anymore. I'm not quite sure, because I don't remember the last time anybody even came close to predicting whom the Raiders would draft. We all remember Cleveland Farrell at number 4. We'll see. He did a little better last year. And Damon Arnett. Nobody saw that coming. Jonathan Abram. He actually hasn't been that great. Damon Arnett, not either. So I don't even know why we try doing mock drafts with the Raiders in it, because they're as unpredictable as they come. But I'm giving it a shot, and I don't think they take one of those linemen. Seems a little too logical. That's the word. Too logical. So I instead think they take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, because Corey Littleton did not work out for them. They clearly understand what they need at linebacker, that cover guy. And that's what Corey Littleton did very well in Los Angeles, but then as soon as he came to Vegas, he just couldn't cover anything. And so I think that they realized the value of a cover linebacker in this system, which relies on linebackers that can cover. And they have a decent middle linebacker, but they just can't have Littleton at will anymore. So they get Owusu-Koramoah, who I think would really play well there, because he's so JOK. Because I'm not going to try to pronounce it every single time. I'll definitely mess it up. So JOK is so good at covering. People are thinking that he should switch over to a position where he can do that more often, like a nickelback, which is actually what he did most of the time at Notre Dame. But he's a linebacker, but he can just cover exceptionally well, because they asked him to cover these amazing slot receivers, and he did it well, especially also like against Amari Rodgers. He played well if you look at that tape. And so he can fill in there and help that coverage defense. He's the middle. I was upgrading in the linebacker, because they kind of do everything. And so JOK can do that as well. And so, offensive line, definitely a possibility. Tevin Jenkins fits in very well. I could see him catching the John Gruden and Mike Mayock's eye. But I think their defense needs much more help in their offense, especially when they're in divisions with the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs, of course. They all with very great offenses and tight ends too. They're playing George Kittle. Not George Kittle, Travis Kelce, the other great tight end, twice a year. They're playing Noah Fant twice a year. And so I think that they just got to make sure they can cover them. And right now, look at their roster. I don't know who's going to cover them. Jonathan Abram? I don't think so. So Owusu-Koramoah can step in there and just really improve this defense. Next, we have the Miami Dolphins. I have them selecting Kwity Paye, the edge out of Michigan. I don't think that Brian Flores can go through this draft without drafting a defensive player in the first round. Because his background is as a defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. So I definitely think they try to go and help the defense out too. They got Penny Sewell in the with the 6th pick, and now they have a pick again and getting Kwity Paye to help that edge rush. And so the thing about I think that receiver is definitely an option here. However, if you look at their offensive the weapons they have on offense, they're not that bad. They're really not. They also got Mike Gesicki, the tight end. They got Devontae Parker. They signed Will Fuller. They got some good players there. And so basically, Kwity Paye. They don't really need a receiver here. They would take Jamar Chase just because he's Jamar Chase, or maybe even Devontae Smith. But I don't think there's a receiver that they really need to use this pick on. And I instead think they try to address their defense, which was very great, but they can always be improved. So Kwity Paye is like that cool technician, and he's got talent. He's talented. Also linebacker definitely on the table here. He can kind of like he can make those plays. Also, I think it'd just be a good service for him to go from Michigan to Miami. I think he'd like that change weather-wise. I think that's great. That just works out well too. Kwity Paye I think would fit there well, and just really give Brian Flores some ammo. So now we get to the Washington football team. And I've been picking Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. And actually, I think that the most likely spot for Darrisaw, other than Washington, would be Minnesota. But I've been taking Gregory Rousseau instead. So Darrisaw the Washington football team has a really good roster. If you really look at it, they got, especially with their defense. They've followed the John Lynch school of drafting, which is just defensive lineman after defensive lineman after defensive lineman. And so they got a defensive line composed entirely out of first rounders. You got Chase Young, you got Daron Payne, you got Jonathan Allen, both of Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne out of Alabama. Then you got Ryan Kerrigan on the other side, and of course, how can I forget Montez Sweat? So they got just a bunch of great players on defense. Their secondary they can definitely go secondary here. Caleb Farley on the board with the position, the injury questions with Farley definitely should be in consideration. So Darrisaw is a great player. They lost that true left tackle in Trent Williams when they traded him for some reason, and I know because he didn't want to play in Washington anymore. But they get Darrisaw who can kind of fill in. He's kind of that Trent Williams type, that like big, strong, just pure left tackle. He's just strong. He's big. He's powerful. He is everything you could want out of a left tackle. In most classes he is the best left tackle. But in this class he happens to share with Penny Sewell and Rashawn Slater. So, alas, he is the third best. All right, you can even say fourth best. Tevin Jenkins definitely has his followers. So now we get to the Bears. Andy Dalton, really? Ryan Pace, Andy Dalton. That's who you want as your quarterback? Andy Dalton. Okay. I guess, I don't know. Well, you already really, really messed up, and you drafted Mitchell Trubisky over the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and then you tried to trade for Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson too, but you couldn't give up enough, which makes sense because the Seahawks definitely value Russell Wilson very highly, as he is the reason that they are competitive most years, after the Legion of Boom, of course. So quarterback definitely a possibility because Andy Dalton just can't be the long-term solution. Maybe I have too much faith in Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, because I don't know, maybe they do love Andy Dalton, but the signing of Andy Dalton meant they had to cut Kyle Fuller, who was right in the middle of his prime, just to save cap space. So that it just had a really terrible effect on the team too. And honestly, if I were Ryan Pace or Matt Nagy and I knew my job was on the line, I would not sign Andy Dalton I would instead give up pretty much my entire future of picks to move up to the number 3 pick. I would try to trade up with Miami or with Atlanta, because basically you probably won't be the ones making those picks if you don't start playing better. So you need a quarterback. If you go into the ownership next year after a bad year with Andy Dalton, you say, no, trust me, I can work with this team. No, you can't. They're not going to trust you. They're going to have nothing. And also, Andy Dalton won't even be under contract anymore. So the next people are going to get rid of Andy Dalton, as they should, or just not let him sign somewhere else. So, but however, if they did get that Justin Fields, Trey Lance type, even maybe kind of to a lesser extent Mac Jones, they would be able to go up to ownership and say, yes, we may have struggled this year, but we have a young rookie quarterback, and he's exciting. And you're going to want us, do you want to give him some we want to give him some continuity so he can continue to thrive. And that's your case. A young quarterback it would be the best case they could have just keeping their jobs, especially because the roster has a lot of holes on it. And they especially don't have a cornerback now. They have Jalen Johnson, but they need someone other than Jalen Johnson, and especially because Kyle Fuller is now gone. So I've been getting Caleb Farley, and who's as talented a corner as you could ask for. However, the question here is injuries, which is the reason why he's not in the top 10. So Caleb Farley he's just got plenty of talent. He can do everything you want a cornerback to do, and so so you just gotta hope. The Bears just gotta hope he's healthy. So they just and because that's the best they can do. He's the best player on the board at a position of dire need. Because Aaron Rodgers is just gonna light them up if the only cornerback they have is Jalen Johnson. As if Aaron Rodgers doesn't light them up already. But they just I don't quite know what they have, what plans, if any, Ryan Pace has. But you know what? I'll try to have faith that Andy Dalton will maybe carry this team to a bunch of wins in 2021, and he'll do well. I don't know, maybe. And so now we get to the Indianapolis Colts. I have a lot more optimism about the Colts than I do with the Bears, mainly just because of the way that they're run. Chris Ballard is a fantastic GM. Frank Reich is the real deal at coach. They got Matt Eberflus at defensive coordinator, they got Matt Eberflus as defensive coordinator, who's just gonna do great things with that defense. They got plenty of they got plenty of players on the offensive line. However, left tackle, definitely look for them to address here, even at 21, especially if Christian Darrisaw is on the board. A lot of people are connecting Liam Eichenberg, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to them here. I think they maybe get him in the second round. I don't think he's going to go that high. But I have them getting Jalen Phillips. What's great about this pick here is that the Colts can afford Jalen Phillips injury questions, because they have so much talent there. But they really need the edge rusher. That edge rusher who's going to make sure that DeForest Buckner doesn't get double teamed on every single play. So they really need that guy, and Jalen Phillips can step in immediately and be that guy. And if the injuries don't pan out, don't pan out well, and he gets a concussion and he has to retire again, then they're still covered. They got a good roster still, and with great coaching and great management. So I think that Jalen Phillips is actually a really, really good fit here, and he'll just complement DeForest Buckner really, really well. And then they go left tackle. They get that left tackle later in the draft, which they definitely could. Maybe like a Walker Little or the Eichenberg, maybe too. And so now we got Rashad Bateman going to the Tennessee Titans, the wide receiver out of Minnesota. Because it just doesn't look like Corey Davis was going to pan. Corey Davis, they drafted him 5th overall. A little bit, definitely a reach, and now they didn't even pick up his 5th-year option. Now he's with the Jets. So, but they do have a really great number 1 option in A.J. Brown. And then, however, they really need that number 2 guy. And, Rashad Bateman he's not the fastest guy, but he'll make plays. He also offers the versatility to play in the slot or on the outside. And yeah, he won't be. And Josh Reynolds, and they signed from the Rams, and he's not good enough to be the second best weapon to AJ Brown, because they're just going to take AJ Brown out and say, hey, Ryan Tannehill, try throwing to the other guys you have, which are pretty much nobody. So Rashad Bateman, I think, will go really well here. He just makes plays. And yeah. So now we get to the New York Jets. Again, number of directions they can go with this pick too. I'm going with the running back, Travis Etienne out of Clemson. I am not of the belief that running backs belong in the first round. However, I think that it's definitely, I like the fit of Etienne in New York. I don't think they should do this pick, but I think they will do this pick. I don't know. It's possible. Maybe like Tevin Jenkins. I bring him up a lot because I really like him, and he's coming. Don't worry. Very good player, and you'll see. He teams up with Becton. Maybe they got a really great tackle duo then. But let's think of where the Jets coaches come from. Robert Saleh, the head coach, and Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's brother, is the offensive coordinator. They both come from San Francisco. And San Francisco is not really known for their passing game. They are known for their running game. So I don't think they're going to go get a receiver here, because I think that they're going to instead try to get a running back like that home run hitter, like the Raheem Mostert. The Raheem Mostert type, I think, is exactly what they're going to be trying to fill with this pick here. And I think Travis Etienne does that well. Pro Football Focus calls him a home run waiting to happen. And so, yeah, they love the Raheem Mostert type running backs, and I think that Travis Etienne will fill that need well. He can catch passes out of the backfield, and he'll just be a little backfield buddy with Zach Wilson, and they can grow together. Also, one thing about the Jets that I brought up is they're getting a lot of people back from who took a year off, especially C.J. Mosley is the biggest name there, because he was given a big contract after leaving Baltimore, and he'll transform that defense. So the defense isn't actually as big a need. Although cornerback they could use an edge rusher as well. They actually have a decent offensive line too, headlined by Quinn Williams, who was a really great player. So now we get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to go two directions, I would say, with this pick, because basically the owner, Art Rooney, the second, said that he's going to really invest in the running game. So there are two ways to invest in the running game. That you can either build an offensive line or you can get a running back. I believe that the former is the better way to go, but the latter is a little more appealing and digestible for fans. I'm going to bring up Tevin Jenkins again. Definitely very, very solid option. Would not be surprised at all if he goes to Pittsburgh. However, they have no running back other than Benny Snell and Jalen Samuels, which is, if you want to commit to the running game like the owner says and like the fans want, they need someone better than that. Maybe they get someone later, maybe Williams out of UNC, but I don't know. Najee Harris is, I think, good value here. He's kind of like that Pittsburgh mentality, that like strong, big back mentality. He can also catch passes really well too, which is great for Ben Roethlisberger to dump off for when he's getting a little older in age, as he is. And so I think that he will go well, and they'll get offensive line later in the draft. Or maybe they re-sign Alejandro Villanueva too. That's definitely a possibility as well. So they got that left tackle, and then they got someone to run behind that left tackle in Najee Harris. And so here, I don't quite know, by the way, if his TikTok game is up to the likes of Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster, who very value that TikTok, those TikTok posts they love to do. So maybe he has to learn. Maybe Juju can take Najee Harris under his wing into becoming a great TikToker. I say great in the most sarcastic way possible, if that was not clear. So now we finally get to it. Tevin Jenkins is coming off the board to the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick 25. And so, yeah, I think Brett Coleman said that he has borderline hatred for any defensive lineman, and that's exactly what it looks like. He just kind of like plays with that like passion that you love to see. He's like so fun to watch. He looks like the defensive lineman's like said something mean to him, said something about his mom or something because he just wants to take them down. And it's so cool to watch. He's got the technique to go along with that. He's got the size to do that and the technique. They franchise tag Cameron Robinson to be at left tackle. And they got Jawan Taylor, who fell to the second round somehow in the draft a couple years ago out of Florida. But the thing is, these guys didn't draft him, so they don't really care that much about Jawan Taylor, to be honest. Maybe they like him, maybe they don't. If they don't, Tevin Jenkins is a great possibility. Just go in at left tackle and just block for Trevor Lawrence and James Robinson. Because you look at this team, their two biggest commodities are James Robinson, who made a decent campaign for Rookie of the Year. I mean, definitely no chance of winning, but decent campaign. And Trevor Lawrence. So protect them both with this one pick and Tevin Jenkins, and just shore up the right side of Trevor Lawrence for a good amount of time, because I think Tevin Jenkins can last that long. Now we get to the Browns, who are celebrating in the streets because they finally made the playoffs, and that is great. I'm really happy for Browns fans because they deserve the win. And I have no reason to think that they are going to stop winning. They didn't lose anyone too big in free agency, and they added some people. They just added Jadeveon Clowney, who's going to team up with Myles Garrett. So they have 2 number 1 overall picks on each side of the line. I mean, that's what most teams would die for. And so, yes, and they also got Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit coming back on defense. And they got that edge rusher taken care of. They could use another receiver to work with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, and I think they will get one in the draft, maybe here if they get the value they want. But Collins is exactly what they need. He's a great player at a great position to need. A lot of people think he might go higher than 26. I have him at 26 right now. He can cover, he can blitz, he can either step in a Will and Sam, because the Browns don't have great linebackers. They got a really great team, not great linebackers. So yeah, he can do all that, everything that you could want of him, and he's got that big size that you love to see. He's like 6'4", 6'5", which is massive for a linebacker and for humans as well. Unless you live in a Nordic country, and then probably your mom is that height. But for most people in America, 6'4", 6'5" is very, very tall, and same thing for linebackers. So he'll kind of just be that great middle of the road player like that, with Tremaine Edmonds. Either could be or is, depends on how you view Tremaine Edmonds. That's kind of a controversial topic for the knowledgeable football world on Tremaine Edmonds. So now I really like this fit here. I got the Baltimore Ravens selecting Terrace Marshall. He kind of fits Baltimore really well. They got that slot receiver in Hollywood, Marquise Hollywood Brown. They tried to make him a number 1 receiver last year, and that's not going to work. He's not a number 1 receiver, and he can't be a number 1 receiver. And they just lost, and they signed Sammy Watkins, again, not a number 1 receiver, despite what the Bills wanted when they drafted him 4th overall. And they know they need a receiver. They were going to be in on Allen Robinson, but then he got franchise tagged. Kenny Galladay, apparently they gave a big offer to, and he went to the Giants. They also gave a pretty large offer to Juju Smith-Schuster. A bigger offer than the Steelers did, but he decided to go to Pittsburgh instead of going to Baltimore. So they just keep getting turned down. But the thing is, they don't have many needs other than receivers, so they can go all in and maybe move up to get maybe Rashad Bateman if they love him. But I think Terrace Marshall works really well here because he's kind of that number 1 receiver. He's like 6'2", 6'3", very fast. I think he runs sub 4.4 40. And so yeah, I think that he doesn't have that many flaws in my opinion. And he kind of is just like that good receiver, and he will really help out Marquise Brown, whom they spent a 1st round pick on a couple years ago, and Lamar Jackson make those plays downfield that we all know he loves to make. And he'll complement Sammy Watkins, who's just kind of that burner speedy guy, because Terrace Marshall can run any route on the route tree, which is really, really great. And then the Saints. So the biggest question about the Saints isn't what they're going to do in the draft. It's what is going to happen to quarterback. They got Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. I think it's got to be Jameis Winston. Right? I think so. They did. I know they did have Taysom Hill start those games when Drew Brees was injured, but I actually don't think I think that was just kind of just like because they know that what Taysom Hill is, and he's kind of what most of those quarterback types are, like a flash in the pan. They have a good couple times, but then when people figure them out and they realize that they're actually not that great of a quarterback, then they just fizzle out. And Jameis Winston is more of that complete quarterback type. So I think that's got to be Jameis Winston. Also, they re-signed him. So they wouldn't re-sign him to just be on the bench. And Taysom Hill, they re-signed as well, but they're not going to put him on the bench. They put him everywhere. They have him returning punts. They have him blocking punts. They have him at tight end. They have him everywhere. It's just pretty much Sean Payton just lives to come up with fun ways to use Taysom Hill. And I think he will continue to do that. But he's not a starting quarterback for a 17-game season. So instead, I think they go with Jameis Winston. But then in this pick, I have them getting Greg Newsome. They got Marshawn Lattimore going into a contract a year. And they don't have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of people who want money. They have Ryan Ramczyk, whom I'm sure they want to give a big money deal to. They got plenty of people who are going to be coming up on contract years, and they're going to want to give him money. Maybe Marshawn Lattimore is an odd man out. And Greg Newsome out of Northwestern, he kind of gives them the ability to, if Marshawn Lattimore does leave, that they don't have to just cry for two years until they try to find someone who can replace him, But also next year, they're going to be playing the Bucs twice a year, the Super Bowl champions. And they got great weapons, and they need another cornerback other than Marshawn Lattimore to cover them. So what's great about the Saints is they can go any position here. They're just going to go best player available, as they always do, because they never really have any what needs that they need to address. So they're just going to go best player available. And now that's Greg Newsome, and it happens to be the closest thing they have to a position of need. And so, yeah. Now we get to the Green Bay Packers. Again, another team I don't know if you can quite mock draft for, kind of like the Las Vegas Raiders. And so, yeah, I don't know, Jordan Love, interesting pick. Doesn't look like it's the right one, especially with Aaron Rodgers winning the MVP last year. Don't quite know how they're going to handle that one. Do they trade? Do they just wait for Jordan Love's contract to expire while Aaron Rodgers is still playing at a great level? Or do they move off of Aaron Rodgers and try to trade him? Do they try to trade Jordan Love? I don't know. I don't think anybody does except management in Green Bay. But again, this is another. They could go offensive line. Green Bay can, and maybe get Landon Dickerson out of Alabama if they trust his injuries not to reappear. Because they just lost Corey Linsley, who was a great center for them last year, like a fantastic center. Now he's in Los Angeles protecting Justin Herbert. But I think they go linebacker. They could use that linebacker. But they're kind of missing since Blake Martinez left to go to the Giants. And so I think there are two options at linebacker. There's Nick Bolton and there's Jamin Davis. I kind of break them into two categories. Jamin Davis is much better against the pass. He's a much better pass defender. And Nick Bolton is a better run defender. He's better against the run. So I think that they're in a division with a lot of really run-heavy teams. Look at Chicago, Minnesota, and and Detroit. They all want to build their team on the running games because they're all really proud of their running backs. Whether it be David Montgomery, Dalvin Cook, or Swift, out of Georgia, who they drafted out of Georgia last year. So I think they want to help that, make sure they got that good run defense, and Nick Bolton to help with that. If you put anything in front of him, he'll make plays. He's not the most talented guy, he's not the fastest guy, he's not the biggest guy, but he just kind of understands football in a really, really admirable way. And so he just kind of gets the game. He's really smart, and I think that he kind of fits well in Green Bay. Okay, now we are at the Buffalo Bills. I have them getting Azeez Ojulari, the linebacker out of Georgia. They just made it to the AFC Championship game, really close to the Super Bowl. People thought they would beat the Chiefs. They did not, largely because they couldn't put as much pressure on him, on Mahomes, as they wanted to, because Mahomes kind of just could do what he wanted to. He kind of just had fun against the Bills. And so they were in on J.J. Watt. He ended up going to Arizona. The weather definitely much better in Arizona than in Buffalo. But they definitely have some problems getting to the passer. Jerry Hughes is getting older. So they really need that guy to complement Jerry Hughes. And they got Azeez Ojulari, who's kind of a boomer bust kind of guy. can do some things well, can't do other things well, kind of like you don't quite know what you're getting with Ojulari. There are rumors that he's actually going to go to 11 to the Giants. Would not be happy if that happened. Absolutely not. But yeah, and so I think he would team up with Ed Oliver, who they drafted like 9th overall out of Houston a couple years ago, and Jerry Hughes, who was drafted a long time ago. And so yeah, he needs to get a little bit like grow into his body, I guess is the way you can put it. But he definitely has the potential to just like terrorize offensive linemen. And so if they can get someone like that to complement their great secondary with Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde highlighting that, then that would really help. Also, they got a great linebacker duo of Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. And so they got a great duo there. And so they got a pretty good defense. They're just missing that true edge rusher, and that's what Azeez Ojulari can fill as soon as he gets there. Now we get to the Kansas City Chiefs. I've been getting Elijah Vera Tucker. They got to go offensive line here. I know receiver is definitely going to be tempting for them, but it's got to be offensive line. Like you watch that Super Bowl, Mahomes had people in his face every play. He had Bucks in his face every play, and they released their 2 offensive tackles. Very good players. Released them both. In Eric Fisher, who's the number 1 overall pick, and Mitchell Schwartz as well. So they really need that offensive tackle to really help because they got Mike Remmers, and who else was that they had? Andrew Wiley, whose father, Bob Wiley, we've all come to love from being on Hard Knocks with the Browns. So they have Mike Remmers is not a left tackle. He's a serviceable right tackle, best used as a guard or a swing tackle, but he's a serviceable right tackle. You don't want him as a left tackle, and Andrew Wiley's a guard, not a tackle. So Elijah Vera Tucker can play left tackle. You move Mike Remmers over to right tackle, and you slide Andrew Wiley into guard. He can also play guard. Elijah Vera Tucker can as well. Again, we all know that they have some holes on defense and the front 7 especially, but Steve Spagnuolo somehow makes it work every year. They always have holes in the defense, and their defense is always pretty good because of Steve Spagnuolo. It's really great to see. He doesn't get enough recognition as he should. Steve Spagnuolo does not, and we all know Andy Reid loves those offensive players to draft, and so yeah, it might be really tempting to get like a Kadarius Toney or a Rondale Moore at Purdue. Or the receiver out of Ole Miss as well, Elijah. And so basically, so he might love those guys, and I definitely think that it's very possible that he does fall victim to his impulses, and he does get that receiver. But I think he's got to just get an offensive tackle because Mahomes can't have that Super Bowl happen 17 games a year. Actually, with the way the Chiefs consistently play in the playoffs, 20 games a year. So they really gotta, they really gotta protect their quarterback, and the way to do that isn't to give him more weapons. He's got plenty of weapons. As long as you got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and of course you got McCall Hardman, and they're gonna find someone in the mid round easily to get to fill in for Sammy Watkins, and they just need offensive tackles. Now we get to the last pick. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle out of Washington. I'm going to refer to him as Levi from now on because I do not want to pronounce that last name again. So, what do the Buccaneers need? I have no idea. They do not have a hole on that roster. Every single position is a position of strength, pretty much. That's a little hyperbolic, but they got a lot of positions of strength on that team. The reason, by the way, is because of Tom Brady taking pay cuts for the team. A lot of quarterbacks are like, they really want a team, or they would say, I really hate how my team keeps losing and doesn't have any talent around them, and then they get paid like $40 million a year or something, and they request even more, or they get paid like so much money, and then they wonder why there's no team around them. It's because of you. If you want a better team, you got to get paid less, because if you consistently take up a huge section of your team's cap, there's not going to be a great team around you, and you have to know that. You're valuing the money over the wins when you sign those contracts. I guess to a certain point, I don't want to be too cruel, but Tom Brady keeps making taking those pay cuts, which is the reason why they keep winning. Like, that's the reason why they got Randy Moss, because Tom Brady took that pay cut. So, of course, Tom Brady has that TB12 brand and a wife that makes a lot of money. So, I guess he doesn't really need the money, but he gets that, you know. And so now they get to re-sign everybody who was on their Super Bowl winning roster, on the Super Bowl who started on the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl for them. And so they got pretty much everybody. So they can just take the best player available. If they get good value, maybe they trade down to a team that wants to get into the first round again to get that fifth-year option that first-round players get that the rest of the people in the draft don't get. So I think again, no trades in this mock draft. So I think they stick there and get Levi, the defensive tackle. You know, give Ndamukong Suh some days off, some plays off. I mean, and to really help that front three. And yeah, team up with Vita Vea, make some opposing quarterbacks upset. And you know, Shaquille Barrett, of course, coming from the edge. Yeah, I mean, this is a good team. Simple as that. And they got Tom Brady. Okay. So if you stuck to the end of the video, I thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the draft. I bet you guys are too. We'll see how many picks. We'll see how this goes. You know, see how this ages. You know, maybe this clip is pulled out of the sewers by Freezing Cold Takes, the Twitter page. But I don't know. It's fun to do, and I love talking football. So it's cool doing it for this long. I don't even know how long it is. I haven't checked the footage yet. So I think I'm going to be interestingly surprised. So yeah, I just kind of keep talking. I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you for sticking to the end of the video. And I hope you guys enjoy the draft, and I hope you guys enjoy the next year. And by the way, if there's anything you want me to work on, or any pick you think I got wrong, anything pick you think I got right, don't like my haircut, you know, let me know. You know, I really want to get your feedback. Okay, well, I hope you guys have a great day.